up, sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, on a Thursday night football night. Of course, the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions. Lots and lots to discuss here as we get ready for the rest of the week. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Take Vegas part of your day. A few minutes from now, former NFL pro, also USC alumni, Marvin Powell III is going to be joining us here on the program. Really excited about what to talk about with the college football landscape, as we have always talked about in the last couple days. So much to break down. I appreciate all of you guys for being here tonight. So I think it's really interesting what tonight is going to give us. So Cowboys and Lions. So I am not big in, like, basically in, like, even with games like this is what's going to be interesting about playoff implications, and a team that you and I both know they made moves, they made trades, and all it is about efficiency. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are walking into tonight where they've got 2 first-round picks this year. And they've already addressed their run-stopping defense. All right, they got Quinnen Williams, who Jerry Jones absolutely admires. And then they've also ended up getting a linebacker and hopes to turn around the defense. So many things are true about the Dallas Cowboys. And at the same time, they've got a really good offense. And as I had predicted before the season had started, once they got George Pickens, I said he may end up having a Cortland Sutton type of season to where he'll get about 75 to 80 catches and then end up going for over 1,000 receiving yards and scoring at least 7 times. And he has exceeded all of those things because it's a contract year. And the Dallas Cowboys, what they've done now efficiently is running the football. Dak looks like his rejuvenated self, and you've got 2 really good receivers that Pittsburgh is now kicking themselves in the back for doing that. So there are many truths to this. And tonight, the truth really is going to come down to Detroit more than anything else, because I love the Detroit Lions. I really do. But the problem of it is health has been a concern. It's not necessarily a team in which they were once like, where it was mostly aggression and it was creativity when you had Ben Johnson as your offensive coordinator. And what's hard about it is when you start hiring guys that are within the organization, in-house, oftentimes it will either, number one, it may benefit because as long as it's the particular coordinator, because you got to be kind of picky. It has to be the particular coordinator who is capable of handling a lot of the tasks. and one that's creative. Right now, the Detroit Lions, their offensive gameplay has not been as sharp. There's been times where there was questionable calls after questionable calls. Not to mention, you also have in a sense where there's injuries, and then you also have a head coach who he's just himself. He's aggressive, isn't afraid to make the calls, and sometimes damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's the truth about Dan Campbell more than anything else. And I like the guy. And oftentimes Detroit fans, they either leave themselves happy or they leave themselves pretty pissed off and disappointed because of mostly aggression calls. That's the hard part. I get it from both sides. And the only thing that you have to be able to find a happy medium is that you have to be aggressive, but not too overly aggressive to where it takes your mind off of the simple things. You got to be able to take points. You got to be able to be efficient in most categories. And so this is what it's going to be tonight. Detroit has to be prepared for it. And in a sense, Dallas, they've got a really good offense. And the big news, of course, of it is Amon-Ra St. Brown is playing tonight. I mean, they're getting their star receiver back. That's going to help. I don't know how much, but on a short week and after an injury he sustained, I know he's a warrior. But there's often times where you get these players who are often don't really play like themselves. That's the hard part. So I think Detroit, this is going to be the moment in which Dan Campbell and the other two teams, the Packers and the Bears, you already know are playing up to their expectations. But the Bears have overly exceeded their expectations. It was all about finding culture when the season started. Now they're the number one seed in the NFC. So lots and lots to look forward to. People are taking the Dallas Cowboys. I'm slightly taking the Cowboys tonight. But I do believe, though, that if Detroit wants it more than anything else, they have to be aggressive on defense, run the football efficiently, make the right calls. And tonight, in a short week like this, is going to be the chance that they could flip that around. Okay, so I want to talk Denver. And just because I live here in Denver, Colorado, and just because that, like, it doesn't mean I'm always obligated to talk about the Denver Broncos. I choose to do that because of a few reasons. Number one is they have a great fan base. I've seen them in person, and I truly and absolutely love all the things that they've done. The other thing is I also make it interesting, because I made it interesting when I lived in Vegas and in my hometown, and so to talking about the Denver Broncos. So I know it's interesting. I know it is. This season, the AFC West and everybody else, it's interesting for a multitude of reasons because you've never seen the AFC be this wide open. I get it. So it was interesting. I was interviewing with O.J. McDuffie. You've heard of him, former wide receiver from Miami for a multitude of years. So I was talking about it, and even before the show, like I mentioned about the Denver Broncos, I love what they do. Okay, I love their defense. I just have question marks on offense. I've been having question marks on offense for X amount of times, and it actually kind of boggles my mind. So somebody had commented earlier, and I had to think about it because, first of all, I love all of you guys as a fan base, and everybody that tunes into my show any time of the week. You guys are amazing, and I love hearing from your responses, whether good or bad, because it gives me an opportunity to be able to evaluate and to be able to see what you may potentially see them and what I see. So basically, I was called about quote-unquote shouldering on a team that for 9 times this season has trailed. And the offense hasn't quite played up to their highest extensive standards. And mostly had been in fourth quarters. That's mostly what it's been from. And I understand. Like, they've played really well with as far as fourth quarter games. But just this past Sunday night, you were shut out in the most important quarter of football. And that's not me, quote unquote, shouldering. I'm not putting pressure amongst myself or putting pressure amongst the Denver fans. I'm being sincerely honest and real with my perspective of what I see. Because, I mean, wouldn't you? There's often times where I look at and I'm just like, man, if only Bo Nix and this Denver offense, if they could just score a touch, I'm not even looking for them to score like 2 scores or 3 scores, because then I'm not really being that authentic. I'm just looking for them to score any way that they can. A field goal, a touchdown in a quarter. Because Denver's offense, I know that they're capable of putting points up. But I want them to be able to show me a reason that, and they have on one side of the ball on defense, because you just watched Nick Bonito literally bat the ball down against Marcus Mariota. So you saw that. And I love what their defense has done. But offensively, it's just like those things. And I will tell you, these were the similar types of things that we were evaluating, and we had strongest concerns, which was the Kansas City Chiefs. Remember how many times they've won in close scoring games? It's happened. Not everyone is going to have a similar upbringing of close scoring games, fourth quarter comebacks, and all the rest of it the same similar way. No one will. But it's hard. It's very difficult. But what I call it is you're playing essentially with fire, because one of those games are going to eventually catch up to you the minute that you go into the playoffs. And what happened? The Chiefs got exposed by the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. Denver, it's been years since they have found a franchise quarterback since Peyton Manning. And Bo Nix is clearly your franchise quarterback. But you got to be able to score on those elements, because that's going to be important for not only for Bo Nix and the offense, but it's going to be important for someone like Sean Payton. Okay, you got to understand with the coaching, it's a game of chess every time when you're in the closest nick of time. So that's what the Denver Broncos have to be. Listen, I didn't even know what shouldering was until I ended up looking up on ChatGPT, and I had to ask myself, am I really shouldering these Denver fans, even though I live here in Colorado? Am I really doing that? I'm trying to be as honest and as real as possible, because America's honesty mind, folks. I cannot lie. I can't lie to you guys. And on top of it all, I got amazing people, like one we're about to introduce here in about a couple of seconds. But I'm telling you, I just think that in games like that, where the AFC is wide open, if you want to be that team that is built and structured for further and beyond to the Super Bowl, those are the key elements, okay? I would hate for Denver to, like, let's say hypothetically, they go 15-2 or 14-3, and they're arguably the best team in the AFC. And then right after the bye week, when a team's gotten red hot after the wild card round and they beat them, that's what's going to really destruct Denver fans more than anything. They'll be happy that they've won, even in a division, but that will cause them to self-destruct, because, yeah, this is the NFL. It gets you high in emotion, and you never know what you're going to get next. Good stuff. Marvin Powell around the corner. I'm excited for this one. Lots of changes in the college football landscape. But it's funny. I actually seen something about USC earlier, and I got to get the perspective on it, because I think it's going to be really interesting. It's been a long time, too. And I've had all my family members back up in California. They're all diehard Trojan fans, and it's been a long time coming. So I'm excited about that. Coming up next, the Patriots, when they ended up winning up on Monday Night Football, and not a lot of people anticipated them to win because I thought that the defensive front line was going to come through for the Giants, but you can't expect so much. But I think for the Patriots, whatever it may look like at the end of the season, the hopes is that the build continues to build for future successes. And I'll explain a little bit more about that, why, even with Drake May and Mike Vrabel, and what we should expect in the up-and-coming week, because this is going to only get harder from here on out. All righty, folks. Well, the holiday season, as we know, season of giving, season of gifting. And what I'm gifting to you is from our partners at Payday Fantasy, we're gifting part of the number one go-to pick'em app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store, and to be able to get paid on the app from just by picking your player. And even if you're picking players tonight, it's going to be a fun one. Dallas and Detroit, who you got? Who's on your lineup? Payday Fantasy is so much fun, and it continues to get even better. And as we get closer to wrapping up the year of 25 to go into 26, Payday Fantasy is there for you. Check out Payday Fantasy today. When you sign up, free $5 entry, just free $5. Fun stuff. And also 100% deposit matchup of up to $100 just by using the gifting code this holiday season. That's code SNAKE. That is code SNAKE for 100% deposit matchup of up to $100 and your free $5 entry. Check it out for yourself today at paydayfantasy.com. Pick the player, pick the outcome, sit back and relax and get paid with Payday Fantasy.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
This college football landscape and changing up so much has been exciting. It's going to continue to build and get exciting up from here on out, especially in the SEC. And to join us in discussing it, because, listen, I got to say, when I was a kid, I absolutely loved the Pete Carroll, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush years for USC, and it made me feel like I was on cloud nine when how dominant that the program has been. And it's been a long time. And so there's been future successes along the horizon. So to discuss that and also discussing more in the NFL, former NFL pro Marvin Powell is joining us here on the program. Let's talk about your alma mater, USC. I mean, because it has been quite a long time coming for this program to finally find its potential and its successes along the horizon. I just saw something, Marvin, that it was a post that discussed about the 26 recruiting class. And USC right now is leading the charge. And Lincoln Riley, I know he can recruit. I know that he can find these guys. When you think about this, because even being in the Big Ten now, there's lots you got to get acclimated to. The physicality of the conference. You got to have clever offensive play similarly to the SEC. What do you make of this when you see that and you're like, the recruitment class is going to be exciting and they got to build upon that class to now show, hey, we are still on the map here in Southern California. Like, we are still showing ourselves what we're truthfully made of. And with Lincoln Riley up at the helm, it's only going to continue to get better from here.
Absolutely. Listen, USC is a school with standards. We're a school with 11 national championships, 8 Heisman Trophy winners, 6 number 1 overall draft picks, more NFL players than any school in history, and that changes every year. But, we're one of those schools, 14 NFL Hall of Famers. So, we have standards. We understand greatness. And the reality is we really haven't seen great football at USC since the Pete Carroll days,
That's right.
In the last 20 years, we've had very good players who've stood out. But the reality is, as a team, as a program, it hasn't been since the Carroll days. All right. And for the first time since 2008, a non-SEC school has a number 1 recruiting class in the nation for the first time since 2008. And that's USC. Listen, Lincoln Riley, our head coach, and Chad Bowden, our general manager, they have put boots to the ground. They have put a fence around not just California, but Southern California, to be honest with you. We are recruiting heavily out the Trinity League. I think this class, we have 8 players from the Trinity League. And for those who are not familiar, this is modern day St. John Bosco, Carson Palmer's team, St. Margarita, I believe. But these are some of the premier teams in America. Who are literally on each roster. I mean, you're looking at 10 to 15 guys who are going to go D1 the next year. So USC has done a phenomenal job in recruiting. Mark Bowman, tight end, Kenye Pepe, left tackle, Booby Feaster, wide receiver, who I think is the next Tyreek Hill. Jonas Williams, quarterback out of Indiana. I mean, we have some phenomenal players, and when you look at getting back to that elite level, getting back to the national championship level, getting back to the standard, it starts with the Jimmies and the Joes. That's the bottom line, and we've done a phenomenal job of looking this year at probably our best O-line class in history. It's already the best class in history in that we have 35, I think now 36 players officially that have signed on here. That includes 23 blue chippers, guys who are rated 4 or 5 stars. So we're talking about volume as well as quality here, quality at the same time. It's phenomenal. And again, when you look at these Kirby Smart teams, when they went back to back, you look at those Nick Saban teams, you look at those teams up in Clemson. I mean, these guys were killing it on recruiting day, on National Signing Day. They were winning for a long time. Because, again, you got to get these guys in there. And listen, in the day and age where you're battling now the transfer portal and NIL, there's so much more to it. There's so much more to it. And it is, when it comes to the NIL, the reality is for all the top guys, the numbers were really comparable, I would think. What it comes down to really is you have to see beyond the money, beyond the NIL. And I think a lot of these kids saw value in staying home in L.A., and building this brand and coming to LA and all the things that USC has to offer. Listen, for us, it's not just, having new players so we can be better. As you said, we're in the Big Ten now. There is a different level of physicality. You know what I'm saying? There's no doubt about it. Don't get me wrong. The old Pac-12 had many great teams, as we know. Many of them were SC teams, but many great players. But they play a different brand of football in the Big Ten. And to compete there, to be elite, you got to have the guys in the middle. Jamion Winfield comes to mind, Sean Scott, linebacker. I mean, USC really filled the void in many of the areas where we were weak, and that's primarily in the middle. So, listen, as a USC fan, as a USC alum, as the son of a USC player, I'm 2 feet to the ground here. I feel very good about this, very optimistic. We have every reason. When you look at when you look at USC and consider how we went undefeated at home this year. We didn't lose a game at home. We went undefeated at home. We were fortunate to be one of our rivals in UCLA. And we won some tough games, or what were considered tough games going into the season. Michigan, Nebraska, Iowa, So these are games that we were able to win on the road and at home. And it feels good. And you just see our program really moving forward in the right direction.
And it just makes you feel so good because, I mean, the entire California region, like I remember watching it as a high schooler. I remember watching the CIF, like the playoffs there in a lot of these California high schools, because you think about, teams like Edison and some of these other schools, and you got to think about, the level of the skill play that has elevated for years, because I've always thought like the states like Florida and Georgia and like a lot of those pipelines, they got some dudes. And then the middle of it, you're thinking about now guys in the Midwest that are starting to come up out here in sunny California. And you're just like, hey, this is going to look good, especially when you got those Ohio States and Michigan states, a lot of them that are more particularly those blue bloods that are all about physicality, and they're all about, getting after it. So I think it's going to be really exciting for USC more in a whole, because I would love to see when my biggest thing is you got a team from California that's winning.
Right.
Football's exciting in college,
Absolutely.
and so that's what I love. So this is interesting. So a former coach at USC, Lane Kiffin, he's taken the job at LSU. My biggest thing is, Marvin, is the college football landscape has changed a lot, and mostly in the SEC, because now I got John Sumrall in Florida. I've got Alex Golesh in Auburn, and I do have Lane Kiffin, who's staying within the bounds, but I'm happy for a few reasons, because number one is I just didn't see the hype around him being an NFL coach for a few reasons. I watched him with the Raiders. It didn't look pretty, but neither are the Raiders either. But my big thing is that college football is so tribal in itself that the players choose you as the program, and the coaching style, the staff, and amongst where you play in the conference and where your potentiality, even for the NFL draft, where that's going to land you, is so it's phenomenal. And then at the same time, the NFL, you choose the player. You choose the contributor who's going to be there offensively, defensively. So for Lane Kiffin, I understand as far as a recruiter, he's a very good one. That's not going to change. My biggest concern about this, Marvin, is LSU. They basically have set the tone in saying it's national championship aspirations. We need that. Whatever happens with Lane Kiffin is whatever it's going to happen. But I feel as though the way in which he walked at Ole Miss, that's a lot of kids you invested in, and especially in the NIL. And so when you got small amounts of coaches that are moving to go to LSU, and then who knows as far as the players are going to enter the transfer portal, they're probably going to end up staying up at Ole Miss, but you probably may cherry pick a couple guys that you're going to fill in the position for now.
Right.
But I do feel that LSU may win one national championship, but as far as the competition up and around them and their potential build, luckily for the pipeline they're in, I just am not sure what I may see this with LSU. I'm not saying it's a wonky fit, because I've seen Brian Kelly and how that worked out. That one did great, and they needed something to help out their offense. I think they've got a pretty good defense to match up with your Alabamas and all of them, but I just think with LSU and the way that this is going to work, it's you got expectations. How are you going to meet them? That's the thing.
No, I get it. Listen, you had earlier mentioned, some of the states that have some of the premier high school football. You had mentioned, I think, Texas, California, maybe you said Florida. Let me tell you something right now. For those who know, LSU is a gold mine. Okay, I'm sorry, Louisiana, the state of Louisiana is a gold mine. And one of the things that Brian Kelly had said when he first got there is that if he can just put a fence around Louisiana and get the best talent, then he can go out there and do that. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if he put a fence around it necessarily. I don't think that he was a great fit energy-wise. But Lane Kiffin has been in the South. He's had success in the South as an assistant coach and a head coach. He's built relationships. He's good at that. And, when you look at his experience, I mean, he has tremendous experience as an NFL head coach, working under Saban, working with Kirby. I mean, this guy has he's been humbled and come back. He is his best version. He's living his best life as the best version of himself right now. Yeah. And I absolutely believe that he's going to be able to go in there and just be genuine about who he is and his struggles and his comeback and win people over. Plus, when you look at his resume, what he did at Alabama, what he did at Ole Miss, what he was able to do at USC, even though they were under sanctions, this guy is built for success. I think this is probably one of the best. This will be one of the best hires that we've seen in a long time. I really believe that. I think he's a perfect fit. I think he's going to get top talent, and he is. Those kids in that program are benefiting from all the mistakes he's made, all the success he's had, and the guy has a desire to grow. You see, he has a hunger to grow. He's taken on new challenges. This is a perfect fit, I think. And I absolutely, I think that we have something brewing in Louisiana with Lane Kiffin. I believe that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting in Baton Rouge, man. And especially when you're up there in Death Valley, like they just cannot wait to start storming the field and getting ready to work. I will say, though, because in Florida, and I mean, we watched a lot of the we've watched a lot of the Florida teams between Spurrier and then Urban Meyer and where they've been at in the last few years. I feel like John Sumrall, what he's done in Tulane, is something that I think is what Florida needed. They needed somebody that could raise the bar on offense, because I watched DJ Lagway, and I do think the kid's got a bunch of talent. Okay, he can run, he can throw, but my biggest worry is that, especially with Billy Napier, I watched Anthony Richardson, and the last thing I want to see is someone like DJ Lagway have a similar upbringing when it comes to you got to learn how to pull back the turnovers. You got to be able to throw the ball smart. And yes, we know that skilled players, I mean, you're in the state of Florida. You're going to find skilled players out there, but it's all about keeping those talents. So I feel like John Sumrall is going to do wondrous things and really shake up the SEC because, Kirby's smart, what he's doing up in Georgia. I'm seeing, Texas A&M, even after, Jimbo Fisher, and what they've been able to do much, much better. And so I just feel like this constant shift in this conference is what many college football fans on the outside is just like, they don't realize how big the competition is here. And especially even in the Big Ten. So when you think about all the shift in movements, I don't think the SEC is really that conference that's put to bed. I think it's mostly just going through a shifting change. We'll see what happens with recruitments. We'll see what happens in the offseason. But I have a very gut feeling I think we might actually see a little more of the upbringing rise of Florida in the next couple of years with John Sumrall.
Listen, the SEC is one of the top two conferences, obviously, Big Ten being number one, coming off back-to-back national championships and now having the number one recruiting class. But no, the SEC is super competitive. Florida has so many athletes in the Florida, Georgia, Southern region. Florida is a huge brand. And listen, DJ Lagway was a top recruit coming out. I mean, he was a super elite player. And, you don't want to waste that talent. Maybe a different voice, maybe a different message, maybe a different offense. If they're able to retain him, hopefully they've had those conversations with him already. But, bringing in a guy from Tulane who's coming up, who's hungry, who's on the climb, a guy who's ascending while he's still, considered a young coach. I mean, that's what you want, someone who has a track record and who's made Tulane somewhat relevant, you have to say, in what I think is a very competitive college football play now. So, it's a situation where I think this would be good for Florida. I think it's good energy, and I think if he can keep the quarterback, I think that there's potential there as well. Florida's a school that has so much talent, and they can get so much talent that it won't be a 3-year rebuild for them. I believe they have players, you know what I'm saying? And they can get players. So, this could be an Indiana situation. That's what they're hoping for, obviously. Right. We'll see. We'll see.
I think I like that because I think it is interesting at what Kurt Cignetti's done in Indiana. If John Sumrall could, I think it'll be amazing. So shifting to the NFL. So tonight's game is going to be interesting. It's not mostly going to be pertaining to the Dallas Cowboys, but it's mostly going to be about the Detroit Lions because of playoff implications. I just think, and everybody knew it. The minute that Detroit went through coordinators, and you see this year and how battle-tested that they've been. I've seen this with a lot of teams, and I love using that term because many teams, either they come out of the trenches a better team, or they come out and, oh, crap, we just lost our right-hand man. Now we got to figure out something else. Detroit, I know, is gritty. They fight. However, with Dan Campbell, unapologetically him as a head coach, damned if you do, damned if you don't, with some of the calls that he has made. Ross St. Brown is playing tonight. We know he's gritty. What is it got to take for Detroit? Because we know Green Bay and Chicago is leading up the Chargers in this division. But with Detroit, I'm thinking about the 6-7 teams, including Dallas, who are outside looking in to getting in that last wild card spot. And on a short week, Marvin, it's anybody's game from here. And I've seen Dallas make huge adjustments. I mean, with the trade that they did to upgrade the defensive line, George Pickens, I said here on the program when we started, I predicted in the season he was going to have a Cortland Sutton type season, 70 to 80 catches, over 1,000 receiving yards, and probably 7 to 8 scores. And he has exceeded all of what I predicted. So to see that, that has to be something the defense, without Terry and Arnold, they have to get after the quarterback, and they have to be able to be in a shutdown scenario in the secondary to where it's the last 5 games. Anybody's game from here, you got to show why you want to be in that last spot.
Yeah, listen, with in regard to Detroit, I mean, what you're realizing is Ben Johnson, this guy was a secret sauce. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because you see now you got Dan Campbell going for it on 4th down. He's taking the play sheet, calling the plays. I mean, you went from an elite play caller, an elite offensive coordinator to Dan Campbell, you know, and that's the difference in their offense. I mean, they've struggled. You see it, and then you see what Chicago's been able to do. Chicago's number 1 in the division, in almost a decade, right? They looked like a mess last year to a degree. Now they play somewhat efficiently. You know, they're out here winning games, and Caleb Williams, who was the generational quarterback out of USC, which I believe he is playing better, and you just see a smooth offense, and you realize leadership matters. You realize that on those Detroit teams, they have players. But I mean, listen, if Dan Campbell was the culture guy, if he was a tough guy, if he was the raw guy, that Ben was the guy who was the strategy guy. You know what I'm saying? He was the X and O's guy, and you've seen it, man. And it's crazy to see Detroit lose games the way they are. Dallas, listen, their back is to the wall. They started off so bad. That they have to do something now. Dak's playing like an MVP last few games. I mean, he is man on fire. He's making it happen. They beat the Eagles. They beat the Chiefs. I mean, listen, they're making trades. They got Williams from the Jets on the D line. That looks to be good for them. I mean, Dallas is playing like they're trying to make the playoffs. I don't know if they have enough time. I don't know if they have enough games, winnable games to do that. It's great to see them get hot and catch fire, and Dak is out there playing. I mean, he's a $60 million man. So he has to show him something. But it's a tough division. That's just what it is, and everybody's still chasing the Bears. You know what I mean? So with Detroit, it's sad to see them come out the way they do, because you root for Dan Campbell. You root for a team like Detroit that has been in the basement forever. You know what I'm saying? Even the casual fan, it's kind of, it's cute if you were to see Detroit doing well. And they're tough, but no, man. When they lost Ben Johnson, they lost a lot. Whereas in that division, the Bears got an O-line and a head coach and an offensive coordinator that made all the difference in the world for them. Listen, those wild card spots are going to be tough, man. They're going to be tough. I don't think Dallas has enough time to get that.
And it's fine, with Dallas, because at least I could close the chapter knowing I did make somewhat of the right moves, and yet I got 2 first-rounders next year. I could address that to go get a safety, go get a corner, get those guys, even an edge rusher on defense. So I could be okay with closing the book, even if I don't make it, and then make noise in 26. Because to me, I could already predict this, where I think Dallas and Cleveland, the 2 teams in 26, are going to be the ones making a lot of noise. So as a Vegas native living in Denver, Colorado, I love Colorado. It's a beautiful state. You got hiking. We just got snow. And I also too love our, the fan base here up on the show. I love everybody's comments, but I was basically called upon, quote unquote, scolding when it comes to the Denver Broncos of what I've seen so far. Listen, I'm not somebody that I'm critical, because I think we kind of have to be, if you're going to pay an X amount of money onto a position where there are high expectations and the fluidity of offense. My big thing is 2 facts. I love Denver's defense. They've gotten takeaways. They've gotten sacks. They have been a shutdown defense. Number 1. Number 2, Bo Nix is their franchise quarterback. I don't think anybody else can say otherwise. But, Marvin, you've played this game. I have a tough time investing up and into a team that I want to be able to believe in, not just on the defense, but on the offensive side, where I watched that game on Sunday night, and the most important quarter of every quarter of football, you get shut out. And it's like, you got to put up some sort of points. I'm not looking for you to get 2 or 3 scores. I'm expecting you to at least stand your ground, keep the momentum, and you've got yourself a lead. Denver has been trailing 9 times this season. It's hard for me to go in, and let's say the playoffs started today, and they're the number 1 seed, and let's say a Houston team, for example, they're the last seed. They come in, they win their wild card round, and now they're red hot with a defense like that, and then they just dismantled that Denver offense. I would hate for Denver fans to literally be like that, where the expectations are so high and then it just came crash landing down because a team embarrassed you up that way.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Listen, let me tell you this. The number one reason why I think that the Broncos, in spite of their success this year, aren't being talked about enough. When I watch the interviews for Sean Payton and I hear how he talks, he's so positive. I think he's positive. I think he's confident. He's complimenting, his quarterback. I mean, his energy. I believe his energy. I do. As opposed to 2 years ago when he had Russell Wilson. Doing his interviews and listen, his calmness and his confidence has got my attention, and he knows that he has something in this kid. He knows it. I mean, now I don't mean it for the future, which he believes that too. His confidence that I'm looking at, his calmness is telling me that he knows his team is ready to roll. He knows he has a team. This guy, I've never seen him so positive. So I don't want to say happy, but just positive. At any point when he was an assistant coach, and anywhere else when he coached in New Orleans. I mean, obviously he was very complimentary of Drew Brees and their relationship, and Drew was obviously one of the GOATs. But I feel like he has, that Drew Brees confidence and trust, and you see it the way he gives off his interviews. And Denver fans, believe energy. He feels good about this, y'all, and that should tell you everything.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why it's like, when I discuss this, it's not that like Denver, they don't deserve to be here. They have every reason to be here because the coaching's been great. And, it's always just keep on the back of your mind the little things that can pop up, because at any point you want to be there prepared for when that does come around, then just be like caught off guard and you're like, oh crap, how did we not end up seeing that coming? Right. So one of your former teams, and I know this organization for a long time has just been wonky. Like, it's just been interesting with the front office. And yet, top to bottom, I look at the talent pool, and they got dudes. The Jets, for some odd reason, like my big thing is they've addressed the pieces that they should. When I think of offensive line, where you got to protect your franchise quarterback, you've also got a really good dual threat run game between Breece Hall and with Braylon Allen. And then even though that they've lost Quentin Williams and even though they lost Sauce Gardner, it doesn't mean that they can't go out and readdress those positions again. But I am a firm believer of this, because a factual percentage is 65% of the league whiff on quarterbacks. It happens because people don't realize finding a franchise quarterback is not as simple as 1, 2, 3. You got to be able to know that the guy, the size, the arm, the IQ, all of that aligns. But you also got to have the right people in place in the organization, from the coach to the coordinators to the GM, that these guys are going to ensure that the build is right. I'm not saying that, the Jets won't get it right, but in my opinion, yeah, they kind of fumbled in some ways, because you saw how that sideline with Robert Saleh looked like a college sideline. And Joe Douglas, just because he whiffed on Zach Wilson, did not mean that, look at Michael Carter, look at Jermaine Johnson, look at a lot of these guys up here, up and on the front. Even when I look at that offensive line with Alufa Shanu, who I predicted was going to be a hit, and now Armand Membo, I just know you're going to have to pay those talented players, because time's going to come up. But you don't want to waste the window where you don't have a franchise quarterback. So when I look at it, Fernando Mendoza is one quarterback that we know out of Indiana, smart, capable. Kurt Cignetti has a lot of trust in him. But when you think about the job, I just don't think with Aaron Glenn he's got it. Respectfully, even as a former player, I just don't know if it's there. But I feel like if you could bring the energy that you've left with Robert Saleh back and then ensure the smart build, maybe the Jets, because the last thing I want to be is behind, because the Patriots are doing what they're doing. Right. The Bills, even though it hasn't looked pretty, they have Josh Allen. And then you got Miami, that they got to ask themselves, hey, we got to be in the middle of the pack in the draft class. And the Jets don't want to be far behind from that.
No, you don't. I mean, listen, The Jets have been breaking my heart for 49 years, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. No, seriously, it's been so bad. Listen, I was a kid. My dad played for the Jets for 9 years, from 77 to 86. And, they went to the AFC Championship, and Ken O'Brien and Wesley Walker and Freeman McNeil. And, they were somewhat competitive, in the 80s. And then obviously we had the Keyshawn years where, we went to back-to-back AFC Championships. With Mark Sanchez, and then also with Keyshawn Johnson with the AFC Championship. That was in 1999. The reality is the Jets are one of the teams with the big playoff droughts. We haven't been able to get the quarterback right. We drafted Sam Darnold, but then we kicked him out the door, and all he's done is look like an all-pro the last couple of years. But we haven't got the quarterback right. We have the last couple of years here, with the Aaron Rodgers situation. I mean, we went into that first year, with a nice roster, thinking that we had, an Aaron Rodgers with gas in the tank. Then he has the injury, then obviously in the second year is his last year, and they get rid of Saleh. And now with AG, I mean, look, AG was a great player for the Jets. I have nothing but respect for him as a former player and as a fan of the Jets. This is what I've seen this year really isn't good on our team. And I'm wondering if we have the right leadership in place. And I really, that's just what it is. I'm being honest with you. We have a couple of draft picks. We have some draft capital now, but in regards to the quarterbacks out there, I'll be honest. I don't love any of them. I don't love any of the guys out there right now. I don't. So I'm not excited about, what's coming out. And I'm not thinking that we should give away, our valuable draft assets for these, I think, mid players, to be honest with you. So, the Jets, unfortunately, just have a history of making bad decisions and just not getting it right. Throughout the last couple of years and the last few decades, man, we haven't been aligned correctly. You see a lot of people throw out management or ownership as the issue. You see a lot of Jet fans asking for ownership changes. I don't think the Johnsons really care about that, but that's something that's big. In regards to, our draft picks. I mean, listen, the kid out of BYU, Wilson, he just, that set us back, you know what I mean? And again, it's just bad picks, bad coaches. And, it's the same old thing all over again, So yeah, as a Jet fan right now, we have players on our roster. I mean, giving away Williams to the Cowboys, losing Sauce to the Colts. I mean, these are two young guys that we hit on. That we drafted. These guys became Pro Bowl and All Pro. We gave them big contracts, but ultimately, without an opportunity to win, management didn't want to pay these guys, so we got rid of them. And you hate to see that, because you want to draft the guy, keep the guy, and so this is the business. We have a decent young O-line. We've hit on a couple guys. I like our backfield. We didn't trade Brees at the deadline, which I'm happy about. We have a receiver. And we have a couple guys on defense still. So we have a skeleton crew. We got some guys out there. But again, in this league, until you get a quarterback, you have nothing. Until you have alignment, head coach, GM ownership, you have nothing. So the Jets have been off that mark for a while. And those are the areas we definitely have to improve.
I feel like, when I think of head coachings, because I do believe, and I have friends of mine tell me this off the air, we're going to come to a point where defensive coaches are going to make an uprise again. I'm talking Saleh's going to have a second chance. I think Brian Flores is on the horizon to have a second chance as well. Then I'm watching with what I'm seeing in Seattle with Mike McDonald, and I could see this with Jesse Minter, because having Jim Harbaugh as his right-hand man and what he's done in Michigan and the pipeline with Baltimore, I feel like he's young, relatable to players, and could get the best out of his players. So I feel like somebody in there that can put his foot on the ground and set the tone and really show what Jets football really is about. Because I love those gritty days. When you think about Scott, the linebacker, like when he said, like, I love those days, because then that made it really interesting, and something has to give in the state of New York. I've been there 6 times in my life, and it's like the Giants have something, the Jets have something, and it's like somebody's got to give.
Listen, and I make this. I got to run here in a few, but listen. And I hate to hear it. You're hearing a little bit of chatter about Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. Okay, and you hear a little chatter. Listen. The Rooneys are loyal people. loyal to the standard. And as long as they feel you fit that, then it's all good. But they don't just fire head coaches. But at the end of the day, the Steelers have not met their own standard. I can see a world where he's not the coach for the Steelers anymore. And I tell you what, as a Jet fan, I think that I would love to have Mike Tomlin. That's exactly who I would go for. I don't want him to get fired from Pittsburgh. I'm not saying that he should, but you're hearing a lot of noise, and things happen. Listen, we've seen it all in sports, right? We've seen it all. Yep. We can't say this would never happen, that would never happen. It always happens like that, So I would absolutely love that. There are a couple of college coaches, believe it or not, that I think would be okay.
Yeah.
Listen, say what you want. I think, Steve Sarkisian down in Texas, this guy has a lot of experience. He has a lot of experience. I think he's a certain type of dude. I think he can lead men. I think he'd do well at the pro level. I like his offensive mind. I like the influences who he's had, you know what I mean? So,
right.
Again, I know he's at Texas making some money, but you're hearing chatter. So these contracts mean nothing. These coaches who are tied to these contracts, that means nothing. The other teams pay the buyout or pay the fee, whatever it may be. No big deal. So, the Jets, we're still trying to figure it out. AG is growing into the coach position. I mean, he's learning on the go, obviously, and it's different when you're a head coach versus a DC. When you're a DC, you're over those position guys on defense and those players. As a head coach, you're operating the whole situation. You know what I mean? And it's different from that perspective. So he's obviously learning a lot, like most first-year coaches do. The learning curve is different for different people. So. We'll see. Ownership has made a commitment to him for next year. So let's see. Let's see what they do with that draft pick. What I don't want to do is draft a quarterback. AG's the head coach, and then we have to get rid of the head coach like they typically do. It's like the norm. You saw what Caleb went through, and now this kid has to, take on a new head coach. I think that organizations fail these kids more than these kids fail themselves. I really believe that. I don't think all these kids were busts. I think these kids just went into situations where they weren't evaluated correctly. They didn't have the proper coaching. They didn't have a program in place. There wasn't a plan for this kid's growth. I think you see that. I've seen that a lot over the last God knows how many decades with the number one picks and top quarterbacks. So. I don't want to make that mistake with the Jets. I mean, we've made so many mistakes in the draft. And, again, until we get alignment and quarterback right, it's just going to be a struggle, man. It's tough.
That is interesting. And Pittsburgh needs a refresher. So I think that may be interesting for the Jets down the road. I appreciate you for coming on by, Marvin. It's been a lot of fun, man. Enjoy yourself during the holiday season with you and your family, my friend. And we'll see what the rest of the season comes about. Because I'm just ready for college football season in 26 to just get started, because this is going to be interesting when it comes playoff time, man.
It is, man. Listen, Drake, love the show. Thank you for having me. Would love to do it again. I promised my family we'd be at dinner by 8:00, so that's why I got to get out of here. And, but seriously, man, I appreciate this, and I look forward to the playoffs as well, man.
Absolutely, man. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the dinner, man, and we'll see you here in very soon.
I hope so. Take care, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you go. I mean, it is going to be interesting all the way through, with college football. And then at the same time, like, I do love these coaches because the SEC landscape is changing up drastically. And I could see why, and understanding that there's a ton of these motions. And the reason that these motions are happening is because SEC is they need competition, and they're continuously getting competition. So I do think this is going to be interesting all the way through. For the Jets, you are just hoping for positivity more than anything to get them back up and on track. All right. So, guys, I've tried with this NFL Top 10. Difficult, but we will have to see through and through what all these teams are going to be about, because I don't trust the AFC. Like, wholeheartedly. I don't trust them. There is so much right now that's happening, and it was hard for me to even construct, the teams that I feel like could make that shift, and the teams that are right now starting to get red hot. So, all right. You tell me what you think, because I do know a lot of people are probably going to freak out at one spot. but I will explain it the best way possible. Top 10, here we go.
Rank them up.
Yeah, it's time. Let's go, baby. It's on time right now.
The top 10 NFL teams, according to Jake.
All right. Top 10, ready to roll. Cue the music. Here we go.
Number 10.
All right, so the Houston Texans, in my opinion, it was hard because between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans, the difference of it is the Jags have had games, and they've had games this season in which they have caused turnovers. Like they need to be able to protect the football up at all costs. I know many people want me to believe in Trevor Lawrence, but I do believe Liam Cohen is doing the right things up in Jacksonville. But here's the fact about Houston. Houston, they are able to get takeaways. They are able to be a shutdown, run-stopping defense. And they've also got really good guys up and on the secondary that could really play up well to their potential. And by the way, with their winning streak, Davis Mills, should be no quarterback controversy whatsoever between him and CJ Stroud, because Stroud is your future. And what you do have is you have a competent backup. And Davis Mills, in the games in which he played under in CJ Stroud's absence, has looked really good. I have him at 10.
Number 9.
Number 9, in my opinion, I don't know what to do with them, but it's the Philadelphia Eagles. My big thing is I love their defense. They are physical, but offensively, Jalen Hurts has been generating plays that haven't even cracked the 200 passing yard mark. And one of the things is that, when I look at this with Chicago or with Philadelphia, is that they've had a tough time running the football. And a lot of that could be play coaching from Kevin Patullo. We've heard how Philly fans really feel about him. I just think with Philadelphia, it's a hard landscape with them right now, but they're still physical. They're still good. They've got really good draft picks. But this year just has been an upbringing. I anticipated this. I have them at 9.
Number 8.
Number 8, it's hard for me to really predict them, but I love what they've done defensively. That's the San Francisco 49ers. One of the things about San Francisco is that with Robert Saleh up and at the helm as the DC, you know what you're going to get with as far as San Francisco goes. But Mac Jones, Brock Purdy, what's funny is that Brock Purdy's become George Kittle reliant lately, and that's okay. You got to have somebody that's your secret sauce weapon, and George Kittle, without him on the field, the Niners don't really have a whole lot of their guys. I think, injuries has been a big bug to them. But I do think San Francisco defensively, and even in a game in which they played arguably the best defense in the league in Cleveland, they came out of it on top, and they managed to at least get points up on the board, even with Myles Garrett playing as crazy as he is. I have him at 8.
Number 7.
The number 7 team, I've got the Chicago Bears. And one of the reasons of this is they may not be playing pretty football that you want them to be. But my biggest thing with Chicago is that they've been able to run the football very well lately with Kyle Monanga and DeAndre Swift. They have also gotten takeaways. They've forced up pressures. They've been really good with 3 and outs. And Caleb Williams, by the way, barely turning the ball over, barely getting sacked. The offensive line has really played out well for Chicago. It's what Ben Johnson knows he's got to do. And I think one of the biggest things about Chicago is they're playing physical, and eventually they're going to get some guys back. But I like with what they've been able to manage with at the moment. I have them at
number 6.
So this is where people are probably going to freak out and probably disagree with me. But the Buffalo Bills. First of all, I don't love their defense. I get that wholeheartedly. Now they contained Pittsburgh by 7 points, but I do know that in some games offensively, like they could either be on a roll or they could be held back tight. Now, I think it's been the hardest thing because Buffalo, I do think, is a good team. They're just not a great team. And they really have to show for themselves that Sean McDermott has to stop making calls in which that pulls them back. But Buffalo, they're in the position that they are in right now, and at the same time, they just have to be able to squeeze out the wins and really getting takeaways, getting after the quarterback. It's tough, but I do think that Buffalo, they can really play up well. I have them at 6.
Number 5.
Number 5, in my opinion, Green Bay. What I saw up and into the Thanksgiving game against Detroit, Jordan Love was throwing up dimes in which he was putting it up and in places that he wanted to. Now, again, Detroit is down, guys. At the same time, they're making questionable calls. But Green Bay, in my opinion, they're second in the division in the North. But all I know is that their identity kind of seems like it's a little shot. I don't know what to think of them. But when Jordan Love is not causing mistakes and he's poised up and the run game is efficient enough, Green Bay, they're running through walls. They're an unstoppable team. So that's why I think Green Bay in this degree, they're at 5. But we'll see a little bit more from them and see what we can find out later on.
Number 4.
Number 4, I got to put the Seattle Seahawks. They're physical. They get after the quarterback. And, yeah, just because that they manhandled Minnesota and Max Prosper, that's not the game in which I'm cherry picking. But Seattle, they have fought. They fought in the run game. They fought on defense. They're able to end up, making big-time plays, even with JSN. And so Sam Darnold, we know at times, often when he makes mistakes, it feels like he forgets his uppercut. But when he does have it, it's very lethal. It's really good. And that's the stuff you really got to be happy of. I have him at 4.
Number 3.
Number 3, I got to put the LA Rams here. Just because that they lost up close and the way in which the game had went, the Rams are still a top 3 team. And I love with what Matt Stafford's been able to do. Now, Stafford got roughed up. That happens to everybody. And against the Carolina Panthers. But the Panthers are also playing for playoff implication. So sometimes these kinds of games are going to end up shaking up a team and their momentum train. But the Rams, they got a really good offense. They can run the football well. And I do think with a young defensive front, they can get after it. I have the Rams up at 3 at the moment.
Number 2.
Number 2, and the team that I know is questionable up and on their offenses, but that's the Denver Broncos. Their defense has been really, really good. 9 times, though, this season. Keep in mind, 9 times they've trailed. But Denver, with Nick Benito getting sacks, guys that are getting after the quarterback, and at the same time, their entire secondary. Now, PS2 hasn't played up to his DPOY season. However, he's still a really good guy that can get the coverages, play man-to-man, and then the rest of them can follow up. So Denver's defense really has been explosive this year. Offensively, Bo Nix, they've been figuring out ways to win, but it is something to have a concern of on the back of your head. They're at 2. I have them there at 2.
Number 1.
The number 1 team, of course, hard to say. It's been a long time coming, but the New England Patriots. My only reason for this is that New England, they're young, Drake May, Mike Vrabel. Lots of people have told me that if Drake May wins the MVP, that may not be good up and into his bill. But listen, the team has been outstanding and being gritty with as far as working with the talents that they have now, addressing the talents that they will get later. But for New England, what a shocker for a lot of people. And I thought that they were going to end up dropping that game against the Giants. But no, they didn't. They actually prevailed and they came out on top. And New England, I love with what they've done. They've done a complete 360 turn. This is exactly where I have it up from here. All right, I knew people probably were not going to like me with the Buffalo pickup at 6, but what am I to do? I couldn't do anything with the AFCs because right now the Chargers coming back from a bye. They played the Raiders, and we know the Raiders have been an absolute dumpster fire. And the Jags, I mean, sometimes it's a surprise basket. That's really what it comes down to with them. I do feel like, though, the Jags could make a case for that but there's so many teams in the AFC that I am having serious complications with. So Houston, Philly, San Francisco, Chicago, Buffalo, Green Bay, Seattle, the Rams, the Broncos, and the Patriots. Notice how in the list there's more NFC teams than AFC teams. That just tells you why I'm so skeptical of a lot of these teams in the AFC, because it's mostly going to be down the stretches. So again, I think with just the way that it is, I'll stay confident. I'm sure I'm probably going to get shots fired at me with this, but it's that difficult. It really is. It's not that simple. Alrighty, folks, we got to wrap it up. Marvin Powell, a big thank you for him to coming on by, talking USC, talking pro football. It's a lot of fun always. Appreciate everybody for stopping on by, up and onto the show. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you next week on the Snake Sports Talk Show, what we have in store for you guys. Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon.